ELTAI, and then we'll take the session forward. ELTAI is one of the oldest teachers association in India with more than 50 chapters all across the country in different cities of India. ELTAI has signed MOUs with almost all the Asian teachers associations and also with BCTL Canada and Cambridge University Press. We'll take the session forward. ELTAI works with the objective of providing one of the oldest teachers association in India with organizing development programs, providing consultancy, imparting latest knowledge in ELT, promoting research and experimentation, and also presenting professional support. For those of you who are not members of ELTAI, I would like to tell you the benefits of joining ELTAI. The first benefit of joining ELTAI is that you get sponsorship for e-courses from various foreign universities and also sponsorship for attending conferences at the national and international front. ELTAI members also get a free copy of the bi-monthly journal, Journal of English Language Teaching, free subscription of e-journal, the Journal of Teaching and Research in English Literature, also free subscription for special interest groups, business English, literature, SIG, computer technology SIG. There is possibility of getting your articles published in our journals and a subsidized subscription for ITEFL, which is a UK Teachers Association, and TESOL, which is a USA Teachers Association, is also available through ELTAI. ELTAI also provides professional support opportunities through webinars, conferences, and workshops. We also provide consultancy services and professional support. So with this brief introduction of ELTAI, I hand it over to Dr. Gohil. Over to you, Dr. Gohil. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you so much. Good evening to all. I welcome you all to this session on making online classes interactive, organized by ELTAI. At the outset, I'll thank ELTAI for giving me this opportunity to moderate the session. I'll not go into the paradigm shifts forced by COVID-19, but one thing is sure that online teaching is not optional anymore. It's a necessity now. And as we are using online teaching and learning facilities, we are realizing that there is a potential future in this field. With advancements in technology, software solutions are handy. However, the use of online teaching platforms have posed a novel challenge to the teachers of almost all disciplines, and that is regarding making the online teaching two-way interactive. English teachers who were already struggling to handle large classes, especially in a country like India, and it was already difficult to ensure quality interactions to meet the pedagogical needs. Online teaching has thrown a different challenge to all of us. However, answers or the challenge may be answered or addressed by exploring pedagogy and finding out ways of using technology creatively. I'm happy that we have three distinguished speakers today, young speakers, who will touch upon all the aspects, pedagogical aspects, as well as technical aspects, technological aspects of making the classes interactive. Before I go to the first speaker, let me request all the participants to write their questions in the chat box with the name of the panelist to whom the question goes, so that it becomes easy for us at the end to ask the question to the respective panelist. So we will have all three speakers speaking first. Each one will get 10 minutes. So maybe after 30 minutes, we will be able to take the questions. We have three distinguished speakers, as Sanjay sir already mentioned, Mr. Bharat Mewadia, Mr. Amit Karandikar, and Mr. Scott Granville. We'll start with Bharat Mewadia. Mr. Bharat Mewadia is a young teacher researcher currently working as Assistant Director at BAPS Girls Residential School, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. He is actively working as administrator, teacher in higher secondary, also as a researcher teacher trainer, and author. Bharat will discuss one of the most essential aspects of teaching, that is planning a lesson for online teaching. We shall elaborate on types of online classes and how to get the most out of it by better lesson planning. We will discuss synchronous classes with emphasis on time to establish a connection with the students, ensuring that the students feel comfortable, types of activities, length of videos, and ways of scaffolding. So over to you, Bharat, now. Bharat, please unmute your mic. Host, if you could please unmute.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
Bharat is on. Over to you, Bharat.
Okay.
You have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Here, let me greet all of you. Very good afternoon, all of you. Today, we'll be discussing about how to make the online class interactive. The first way of making the online class interactive would be through better plan. Everyone plans, all of us do plan. And we have been planning since the day we started teaching. Today, the medium of our planning has changed. The way we have been planning till now will differ a little. Think of it as using Google Maps to navigate seas or skies. It's not practical anymore. So, yeah, how do we do that? So I'll be giving you a simple questions, which I'll be asking you through the course of my next 7 minutes, and you just have to answer them. Once you are done answering them, put the titles, and that would be it. So on this online session, you will be able to interact with me in a very offline way as well, and the online way as well. It's an ongoing interaction that we'll be doing. Let's start. The first question that I'll be asking, the online teaching question. The first question, what should the students learn this week? Ask this to yourself. Why is it important? Yes, because our learning plan always has to be aligned to the students. Once we started that way, it would be easy. It would be simpler to align our teaching with an objective. Not just the syllabus, what the students will be able to do at the end of the chapter, at the end of the material, at the end of the topic unit. Let's determine that. Once we have determined that, we have the objective at our hand. While we are deciding on the objective, we must always keep in mind how will we be able to determine what they have learned. It's important to keep the end in mind as we start. Keep the assessment in mind as we start. I'm sure Scott is going to take that in real big depth. The second question is online teaching question number 2. What material will students need to engage with? I'm using the word engage, not the material that students need to study with, not the material that the students will need to understand. Our material has to be focused at engagement of the student. The material is available on internet in abundance, and we have to use our judgment in order to choose that material properly. With the material, we also have to determine, like I said, the material which enables them to learn and grow at the same time has to be very, very important. There is a lot of digital material. it is always helpful that we have few resources as backup. Lot of material has a repository in our back so that we can give it to the students, whoever needs. Digital material is really easily available today as against to what it used to be before 5, 10, 15 years. Brings me to the next question. Online teaching question number 3. How are you planning to communicate with the students? Your plannings are really important, since what you say, what you write, what you tell them, they are going to do. Unless it is clear, it's likely to make a little mess, right? Stand for 5 minutes, but that is for recipe. Faculty communication is really important. It could happen 2 ways, synchronous or asynchronous. Synchronous is phone calls. The medium which we are communicating through right now is the synchronous medium. It could also be asynchronous, as we previously did. You filled up the form and you received an email. That is asynchronous sort of communication. There are several media platforms available across the internet today. Video conferencing, chatting applications, social media. People are using social media to study today. The world has come a long way from the old SMS days. And the learning management system. Beautifully designed learning management systems are available today. But whichever that you pick up, Google Classroom, Canvas, Blackboard, whichever material that you pick up, whichever learning management system that you pick up, it is very important that you are comfortable with the platform. Why? Because as always, I guess everyone does realize it is extremely important to have a plan B ready when you're dealing with technology. Technology can stab you at and can backstab you at any time. It's better to have a plan B ready always. I have been facing problems in my last 2 presentations, and it has taught me one thing: always have plan B ready while teaching. You will also need to be comfortable with the platform that you use to teach the students, because you will need to troubleshoot not only your own problems, but also the problems that the student might be facing. The student might not be very comfortable. So that is the reason you need a better platform. Online teaching question number 4. How are the students going to discuss things amongst themselves? Let us face it. The students are not in the campus. The students do not have their neighbor with whom they used to discuss things very comfortably when they were in the class. The students do not have the canteen right now. The students do not have the cozy cafes right now. But does not mean that the students will not communicate. The students are going to communicate. We just need to give them a better platform, the platform where they are comfortable. And here comes one wonderful opportunity for all of us. They are going to communicate no matter what, through Instagram, through Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook, anything and everything. Why not pick up this opportunity? Why not take this opportunity and ensure that their communication is transformed into collaboration through the activities that we give them to do? Excuse me. Why not take it a step ahead from communication to collaboration for them? The last question, online teaching question number 5. What work will the students do? How will they submit it? And how will you provide the feedback? Yes, it is important. Till now, it was very obvious. The feedback is going to be from their notebooks, and the assessment will be the pen and paper test. In online medium, even that has taken a change. With online, the students will get a little creative, right? Like the teacher here on the screen, she is telling the students, just don't send me your Facebook profile. I will need much more details when I ask you what you did this summer. So let us be specific when we are saying regarding the feedback and assessment, the quantifiability has to be there. What work will be submitted? What work will be completed in this week? Where are they going to submit it? And how are you going to provide the feedback? Feedback is probably the most important part of the entire training process. I cannot put more emphasis on that. The feedback could be through emails. There could be an email stream. It could be a forum. You can have virtual meeting like this, or it could happen on learning platforms. Be very conscious of providing them feedback. Today, once again, we have this opportunity where we are able to provide them formative feedback in a much better way. The formative feedback can be given to them rather than just giving them A+, B+, C-. Let us focus on their skills. It is much easier to evaluate their skills right now than it is to evaluate their knowledge. It is possible. Let's put all this together. The first question that we did was the objective of your lesson plan. The second question now becomes your teaching learning material. You can have n number of internet links on that. The communication plan that you put in place is how you will interact with the students. How students will interact with amongst themselves is the discussion opportunities that we give, and the student feedback and assessment is the last part of it. Now that you have all put it in a place, this is one sample lesson plan. I'm not saying everyone would be comfortable with it. I'm not saying everyone will be following this one. It's a tentative plan that anyone can follow very simply. Start with introduction, give introduction, make them feel that personal touch, provide them a little revision, give them a video, a fresh topic. Don't make the videos more than 10 minutes. It's a historical blunder if you are giving 15 or 20 minutes or more than 20 minutes video lecture. Students are going to phase out. They'll not listen. Give them something to study by themselves. Facilitate their studies as much as you can by making them responsible. Do not ignore the aspect where they can study by themselves. Engage them with the material, ask them to submit the task, give them the feedback and assess that. Is that it? I think that planning process ends over here. But I have one minute to go before I end, Surendra sir. Sorry.
Yes, please. Yeah, no problem.
This is the quantitative aspect. There will be the emotional aspect. Had it been all quantitative aspect, it would have been already taken over by artificial intelligence and it would have been a webinar of all the robots. We wouldn't be interacting here. Let us take some emotional aspect as well. Why not go back and think, how can we connect to the student? Let us think of the first day that we started teaching. The enthusiasm that we had on the first day, when we became the teacher, when we became the faculty, when we entered our college for the first time as a faculty, and we saw those bright young faces in our sight, and we thought that, yes, I want to make a change. I want to make a difference. I remember my first day, my Guruji, Pramukh Sai Maharaj, who is also the creator of Akshardham, he always would tell, the heart of education is the education of the heart. This has been my guiding principle. I always end up thinking, what motivated me? I've always wanted to make a change in the people that were there in my class. How can I make it more meaningful for them? How can I make it more appropriate? How can I ignite that passion? How can I add the color? What was I intending to do before I was walked down by the system, the government, the paperwork, and everything else? today we have that opportunity. Those constraints are little less. Those opportunities are little higher. Those
I'm
problems are little
sorry,
less.
Bharat, you will have to wrap up, Bharat, please.
Last slide, Sundarbai.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let us ensure that by better planning, we touch their lives. It's an opportunity. Let's take it. Let's touch their lives through a better plan and online teaching. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bharat. Thank you so much. As teachers, we have a task that teaching is not enough, but we also have to ensure that learning is taking place. So thank you so much. You have covered from aspects from objectives to feedback, and we will have more discussions in the question answer session as well. So now, without wasting much time, I'll go to the next speaker, that is Mr. Amit Karandikar. Amit Karandikar is a management graduate and has a varied experience of working with the corporates as well as in the field of teaching. He started his career with a managerial position with the SL Group and later diversified into academics and teacher training. He has experience of training with prestigious companies and institutions like ILNFS, Pratham, Asia Pacific, British Academy, Vivekananda Institute of Management, Tapovan Schools, and many more. Amit is going to discuss organizing an online session to make it effective as well as interactive. He will also share sample activities that can make a session interactive. Looking forward to your talk, Amit. Over to you now.
Thank you. Can I have the host rights? I would like to share my screen. I would like to share my screen. Can I have my host rights, please?
Yeah, you can share. No.
All right, yes.
Participants can write your questions. You can write your questions to Bharat in the chat box, please.
All right. Welcome all of you and good evening all of you. I would like to start my topic straight away. My topic is about making online classes more effective as well as interactive. And for that, let us now understand where are we right now. We have suddenly come to a stage where all of us are kind of forced to start online sessions. The moderator very correctly said in the beginning that it is not an option anymore. We have to do it. But are our students also aware of it? So the first step, if we want to make our online sessions effective, is that we learn how to conduct online sessions and we educate our children also, our students also, as to how to attend an online session. So there are various points that I have, but I will only like to focus on the colored points. The first is educate your students about the mute, unmute. So they should unmute them. They should mute themselves when they are not talking. Also let the students know there is a lot of connectivity issue. So students can keep their videos disabled, only enable the video when the teacher asks them to. And then also it is important that we tell the students about the chat column, because we want to do interaction, and chat box will be one of the places where we can interact. For example, this session itself, all of you are going to put your questions in the chat box, and it was told to us in the very beginning itself that you're supposed to write the questions with the names. And then using headphones. I use a headphone, and it is important that we tell our students also how important it is to use headphones, so that there is no external disturbance for them also and for the host also. I would not waste time on the other more common points, but these are some things that we can drill into our students in the first 3-4 sessions of our classes itself. As a host, what should we know? Think of it. If I am a host of a session, I'm going to conduct a class, online class. I am the leader of that class, and therefore I must know certain technicalities of the platform that I'm going to conduct upon. I am assuming over here that majority of us are conducting on Zoom, because we are conducting right now also on Zoom. So it is important that the waiting room should be enabled, so that you know who's entering and whom to admit, not to admit. You must know about the mute column. As a host, you have the right to mute people. Right now, our host unmuted me. That's when I could talk to you, all of you. There is the chat option. So see, in a classroom, in a physical classroom, we can easily say don't talk. But in this, on this platform, there is a possibility that students chat amongst themselves. There is a setting where you go into it and disable that chat option. The student should be able to chat only with you, as long as you don't want them to chat with others. Then there is a remove option. This is like a final stage where if there is some student who is creating too much of a disturbance, you need to remove that student, because you also need to pay attention on the other students. One technicality is name change options. There are a lot of people disturbances that happen when they change their name and try to create some mischief. So disable that option for the name change. And then there is screen share, which I have done right now with you. But the most important is time limit. Teachers, I feel that 40 minutes is what Zoom gives us free of cost. And if we have a paid version, it gives us unlimited. But still, if you want to have a class which is efficient and effective, I don't think a class should be more than 35 to 40 minutes. That's what we do in schools also and colleges also. Let us go to the interaction possibilities. I come to the main topic now. So the interaction possibilities that we have are these many on an online session. We have a chat box. So what can we do with the chat box? Post a question in the chat box for participants to answer in that chat box. You can put yes, no questions or short answer questions. All the pink colored text is the example. So I have conducted sessions where I start my session with the first thing I will do after lockdown opens, and my students write a one-liner or a two-liner to explain that. And what is happening is a good small talk happens and an ice-breaking happens. As class is starting, first 2-3 minutes are invested in that. Then we can have pair discussions. For this pair discussion, group discussion, we need to understand the class strength. Are we going to conduct a session of 20 students, 25 students, 40 students? In this case, it is 100 students. So generally, I assume that we have classes of somewhere about 20 to 40 students, and where you can decide as to which who you want to talk. It can be on the spot while you are conducting the session, or it can be at the outset. You can assign pairs in the beginning and then put a question for them to discuss. At that time, the teacher can mute himself or herself and let the students talk for those 1 minute or 2 minute conversations. So an example question I have for you: what is important when selecting a mobile phone for teenagers? And I have also given some sample reasons to discuss: features, price, and brand. The same can happen with group discussions. You can select a group at the outset or on the spot while you're conducting the session. Now, what is an open discussion? So you can post a topic or a picture or an issue to be described or discussed. Example: life after the lockdown will be. You post that in the chat box and give an open stage to all the students. Let there be a debate, let there be a conversation. Even if you feel that there is a little chaotic situation, that's when you can moderate. That's when you can come in and ask somebody to speak or not speak, and etc. And the second last that I have for you is presentation by students. This is my practice. I have done this presentation by students many a times, where I assign some presentation topic. Generally, the presentation is not more than 1 or 2 minutes, because I want the other participants also to participate and interact. And that presentation, once that is done, as a teacher, I do give feedback. But what is even better is if the students can give feedbacks to each other. So if I give an assignment, a presentation to, let us say, one of my students, and let's say Abhishek, and then after Abhishek has presented, I have also assigned a judge, or let's say a person who will give a feedback, let's say Virender, and Virender is going to give a feedback for about 30 seconds. So what happens is there's a constant interaction between students also. And then there is the hand raise option. In this Zoom, Cisco WebEx, we have this option of raising hands. So you can ask questions where the answer can be only by hand raising, and still you know that all the students are paying attention, as well as they are answering to your question. Now, if you do want to have interaction, there are certain prerequisites for interaction, and Bharat sir has mentioned about the planning. I would just add to that a little bit more. So objective or lesson, it has to be very specific and it has to be very limited. And I'll tell you why. As such, objectives need to be very specific. We cannot have vague objectives because they are not easy to achieve. But why on an online platform should it be limited is because this platform is new for us as well as the students. So let us not be overwhelmed with the fact that we have to now teach on an online platform. Let us have limited objectives and achieve those objectives. To achieve those objectives, it is very important that we have very apt instructions. So whatever instructions we want to give, since we want to save time on our instruction, it is important that we have apt instructions for the tasks to be assigned. Then finally, the task for which there will be interaction. So the task should be designed and they should be reader friendly. When I say reader friendly, there will be instructions that I give to my students. But when I present the task to them, they should be able to see and read the task and still able to understand by themselves. There is a possibility that they did not pay attention while I was talking. So I don't want to waste my time talking again. A good amount of scaffolding. Now here, I'm assuming that we are all English teachers. And if we do want to have an English conversation going on, it is important that we give some type of scaffolding to our students. And I'll give you some sample also of all of these that I am telling right now. So give a thought and create a good support for students to complete the given task. And finally, the interaction. The very reason why we did all this hard work. So encourage students and don't over expect from the students. This is very, I am saying this with personal experience. We have seen this in English classrooms also, that students do feel a little shy to talk in front of the class, and especially when it comes to English, speaking in English. Now here, the challenge is even higher. There can be network issues, there can be shyness, there can be people around. There are so many other reasons why a student might not want to talk. But as a teacher, my job is to keep encouraging. And if I over expect from a student, I might be disappointed and I might end up, scolding the student or something. So therefore, don't over expect from the students. Let them learn at a slower pace, even if it is slower if you think so. And finally, the feedback. So encourage students to give feedback on the session. It's not just the teacher giving feedback to the students. How about students giving a feedback to the teachers? After you have completed a session, how about connecting with the students on, let's say, WhatsApp, or even at the end of the session, asking students as to how you felt the session was, what was good, what was not good, what do you think as a teacher I should change in the next online class? And you don't need to ask this to every student. Randomly 2 or 3 students, 4 students, you can keep asking and let them contribute. And now, because I have said so many things, I think it is my duty also to give you a sample activity. What sort of activities can genuinely encourage interaction? So here is one. This is one speaking task. Yes, I'll wind up in 1 minute. Your classmate is leaving for USA for further studies. Your group wants to give her a gift. These are the enlisted gifts. And there is a small scaffolding about positive, comparative, and superlative degree. The students are supposed to use these or more, whichever adjective they wish to. This is one sample activity. Sample activity 2, this is compare and contrast between photographs. So I have given 3 photographs of celebration and the students can compare these. I have also given a scaffolding of similarity words and contrast words as to which words they can use and how they can connect things. And these both were genuine speaking activities alone. And these were standout activities. These were not from the textbook. But here is one from the textbook from CBSE. So it has chapter 2 of CBSE 12th standard, The Lost Spring by Anis Jung. You might be aware of this chapter. So here is a picture of where the students can describe it. And I have given certain things that they can talk about. So notice the children, the background, the garbage, and the slum. If we are able to include such things, it is possible that the students will interact with the teacher as well as amongst themselves. Your question should be such that they evoke a certain type of argument so that people start talking, students start talking. And that's where, as a teacher, you will be able to make the students more interested in an online class, because otherwise we don't know what they're doing sitting in the comfort of their homes. They are not right in front of us. And that's it from my side. I think I've concluded in time.
Yeah, you have. Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. You have covered practical aspects teaching and learning, and obviously it requires altogether new discipline. Classroom discipline is different, and online classroom discipline is altogether different.
Yes.
So you rightly pointed out to some of the aspects from New Zealand. Scott Granville, his co-founder and manager classroom, blended learning and online study use. An experienced lecturer and teacher in the tertiary sector, Scott enjoys the challenge of creative and education-based work environment and has extensive knowledge in learner support processes for academic and future employment success. Scott is also an award-winning producer and screen graphics. He has written teaching and learning content for textbooks and curriculum design for classroom and online delivery. In this last part of the discussion, Scott will focus on how to utilize feedback and peer evaluation in the online learning environment. He will present an overview of ways to encourage learners to be active participants, and then use examples of live feedback, peer evaluation opportunities, and dialogue simulations to reinforce the key points. Over to you, Scott. Scott, please unmute your mic. Can the host help in unmuting his mic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good now.
Yeah.
I hope everyone can hear me. So yeah, firstly, well, I'll share my screen and let's get that up there immediately. So just bear with me for one moment. Okay. Should be about, okay. Yeah, firstly, it's a great honor to be here and speak with everyone. I feel quite privileged to be able to listen to the previous speakers and hear some really sort of practical, strong suggestions about online classes. As our esteemed host has said here, we're in a very interesting situation in the world. I wish I had more than 10 minutes. I'll try and get through as much as we can in the 10 minutes here. What I'd really like to do is I'm going to present a lesson format as an example, and then look at how feedback can be used in online and remote situations. I'm going to touch really briefly on peer evaluation and look at dialogue simulations and how they can be used in effect with students. And if we have time, we'll review quickly. So we'll just move on. Just really quickly, yeah, Chasing Time English, and I appreciate the kind of introduction there, but the background I come from is in English language education and also from a creative filmmaking perspective. So the way that online teaching can be used as a communicative practice is something that I'm very passionate about. There's people that do it very, very well, but as we see here, the reality, and one of the speakers spoke here, when we're talking about large cohorts, when I speak about large cohorts, I'm looking at kind of 50 students plus. In a perfect world, we'd have these small groups of 12 to 20 students, but the reality is sometimes when we're dealing with online cohorts, they're much, much larger. However, the overriding aspect for me is a commitment to communicative, student-centered approach. How do we engage our learners and how do we motivate them? Now, for many of us, the face-to-face aspect has been taken away for a short period or perhaps a longer period, but those principles of communication and what do our students need and want still are reflected in how we approach online teaching. So one thing that I'm very interested in is what we call the flipped classroom approach. And to build off what our previous speakers talked about, one of the gentlemen spoke about having videos that do not go on for too long, and I completely agree with him. I think he used 10 minutes there. I would go even further to say that most of the video content I would use would be at the most 5 minutes. So when we talk about flipped classroom, what we're doing is presenting information to students as a preview activity that they then bring into the online environment. And what that does is gives us a head start where the students have that information on hand that they can then bring into this online environment. So I've said here, if we can present a text for previewing. Now, when we talk about text, obviously this may be a written text or it could be a visual text. So then what we can do is provide the students with a text before they come into the lesson. We might provide some additional questions, some open or close-ended questions, or just a little bit of preparation before they come into it. The next thing I would do there in preparation, now I've put a short lecture online with time for questions. When I use the word lecture, I use that quite loosely because basically what I would also consider there is teacher instruction. What's our topic? What's our subject, our focus? It may be something as specific as a grammar focus, or it could be something much broader in terms of a written text and looking at sort of academic language. So if we look at these stages here, so we have the flipped classroom approach where we come in, we present a text that the students bring in, the teacher then has as short a time as possible speaking to the students, because what I want to look at the next part here are some set tasks that we can get away from that big group. And I'll use a group of, say, 40 students as an example, because I want to look at the productive tasks, the writing and the speaking. So when we have those receptive skills that we do prior to the lesson, then our end goal is something communicative in the form of a speaking task or a productive task of writing. So if we look at feedback and peer evaluation, part one, and the previous speaker there made some really good points there about feedback and what that looks like. And I guess this probably follows on from that a little bit. So let's imagine we have a group of 40 students in our online class. What I would do from there is present a writing task, and for argument's sake, well, let's use an essay that's due in 2 weeks. Now, this would not be the summative final task, but in formative stages, what we could do there is to break up the groups, time dependent, into smaller groups of, let's say, 8 to 10 students. And if the students have presented a piece of writing beforehand, rather than trying to identify individual errors within each piece of writing, we can put together some common issues, speak to a group there, and then encourage questions within the smaller group. So we may say we have 15 minutes for a group of 8 to 10 students. I'm going to present 5 common issues, and then I'm going to invite the students to come back to me and say, how can we improve on these things? It may be something such as punctuation. It may be, again, going back into tense form. But these kind of things here, when the students are encouraged to come back to the teacher, you start to get this live or immediate feedback. What I would then do, and again, the speakers talked about having comfort within the system that you're using. So if you're lucky enough to have an LMS where you can divide the students, I would do that. But they're so savvy, tech savvy these days, it may be as easy as setting them up in groups of 3 on WhatsApp or something like that. I would then encourage the students to go into pairs or groups of 3 and to review each other's work. Look at those common issues and then try to make changes as a pair or as a group of 3 before resubmitting. Because what you do there, the participation and awareness increase students accept responsibility not only for their own work, but they're also responsible for their partner's work or the small group. And what that does, it develops kind of really strong social inclusion and awareness, which is something that I'm really interested in as well. Now, the second part of this is a speaking task. So again, if we go back and think back to how the lesson was framed, we can use this as a writing or a speaking task. The students have been presented with a text beforehand. They've come into the lesson with some knowledge of what we're going to speak about. Now, during the online session, we'd introduce the students to a task. Now, I've put here as an example, it may be part of a job interview or some kind of practical skill here. So what we'd do, we would talk about some kind of common issues or errors that are made during that, maybe show a short video example of a good example and an example that's not so good. Then I would ask the students, once the session ends, is to work with a partner and then present their own recorded short piece, 2 or 3 minutes. Now, when we talk about technology, this can easily be done now. If students are lucky enough to have Zoom, there's a recording function. And so what they would do, they would use the template or the exemplar that's been presented. With a partner, they would record something, and then you have 2 choices, depending again on size. They could send those short examples to you as the teacher, and then you can provide feedback. Or if you want to sort of further this peer evaluation, you would then take one video and pass that on to another peer. So you've got this kind of ongoing cycle of students evaluating student work. Now, they're not grading it, but they're just looking for issues that they can help other students with. Because as an educator, that's what you're really trying to do. You're a facilitator, and it shouldn't be the teacher coming down on students. It should be the students the teacher interacting with the students, and then taking all those positive parts so everybody has a positive outcome. Now, part of that second part there is what we kind of talk about as dialogue simulations. The communicative aspect, and if we come back and not to sidetrack too much, but what are we really trying to do? Now, we don't have a whole lot of time to sort of step outside this and say, with learning outcomes and all these kind of things, where are the students set up? So I've used a very broad example today. But what I'd say with dialogue simulations is that you can prepare students if you frame the task with clear expected outcomes. Now, it may be that you expect 2 students to present you with a 2-minute dialogue that focuses on a particular future tense topic. Now, what you do here is that you present the students with very interactive and very active ways of producing the language. And so what you can do there, you can set a group of 40 students a task to do. Then they can provide feedback back into the group, and you may, depending on time and the number, you may present these students with some of these examples. You know, there's nothing better than seeing a student proud of something that they've produced. And so every time that you can use student work as a kind of example, a positive example, with these real life scenarios to model the language and behavior, you're actually encouraging more and more students to follow the lead of those stronger students. And again, I find this to be a really valuable way of the group working towards a common goal. I'll summarize here. I realize I'm probably getting close to my time here. But I think some of the key takeaways that we can look at from making online learning interactive is to keep the learning active. How are the students being productive? Now, I would say if I had more time, I would encourage some of us to kind of interact here, because I'm aware that I'm speaking at an audience for 10 minutes, whereas normally I would encourage feedback throughout this. Because what feedback does, it makes the learner feel valued. Now, it needs to be one of 2 things, or both if possible. It needs to be immediate when it can be, but it certainly must be purposeful. We shouldn't give feedback just for the sake of feedback. If it's a formative part of an assessment, we can build on to make sure that at the summative part of this assessment that they're successful. If we encourage peer evaluation, now I find this particularly with tertiary learners, but it's also very valuable at high school level as well. These are three sort of things that I've found, three aspects that we can say for sure. It's very good for social skills. The flip side of this, it's not good when we come onto an online platform and talk at a group of tertiary or high school students for 30 or 40 minutes, because often we're not engaging with them. So the follow-on from that is it's good for participation. And it's actually, the third thing is actually something more practical, that we come back to what both the previous speakers talked about. How do we manage our time in this new environment? So I guess I would follow up or finish up by saying, and to borrow from the previous speakers there, good planning, engaging lessons, and then requiring your students to give you something back to show that they're engaged, make for really interactive, strong online lessons. So I thank you for your time. I guess I'll wrap up there, and I hope I haven't gone over too much, but I guess, I hope there's some questions to come.
Thank you, Scott. Not at all. In fact, you have wrapped up the session very well, combining all three speakers. It was wonderful indeed. Sometimes it so happens that in the excitement of using a new environment, technology, we lose focus from the goal. But you rightly pointed out that it's important to be focused and stick to the pedagogy, stick to the outcomes, desired outcomes. And in fact, in a country like India, it's obviously an advantage when the students are excited about using this new platform. We should take advantage of that and convert it into learning opportunities, especially in languages. So thank you so much. I think it's already 5:29, but still we have some scope for questions. So I'll request Xavier, if there are some questions collected in that Google Doc, if you can screen them. Otherwise, I have. Yeah, participants can still write questions. If there are some questions, please mention them. Please write them in the chat box. Yeah, so we have a few questions here. I'll go with Bharat first, as I'm sure he must be waiting for the questions. Yes, Bharat, there is a question. How do we think students will become more creative online? Or how can we ensure, in fact, that they become creative online? If you can, yeah, answer, please. Please unmute your mic, Bharat.
Okay. So it's like the students are creative by themselves. We have all grown up since we have been a faculty, since we have been a teacher. We have always been told that the child is intrinsically creative. When they come to the formal system of education, somewhere in order to follow the guidelines of the given system, their creativity is smothered. Like I said towards the end, right now we do have the kind of environment where where the boundaries are a little blurred, where the constraints are a little loose for us. Can we design something where the students are able to flourish with their creativity? How do we make them more creative? There are n number of devices available. There are a lot of tools available online. Like you can ask them to make mind maps online. You can ask them to make videos online. But what I would say is one of the biggest accusations that we do receive as a teacher is we are the ones who are stopping their creativity. If we can just allow them to be creative, that's it. We just have to give them the scope to be creative, and that would suffice. Thank you.
All right, Bharat, thank you so much. In fact, the next question that I'm going to ask to Amit, it has been, there are many questions that are covering the same issue, that is of how to motivate the inhibited, diffident learners to participate, to interact, to actively participate in the online tasks or assignments. Amit.
Thank you, Surendra sir. There are various ways. So I'll list a few of them. The first is effective scaffolding. If a teacher comes to know that a class, or let's say a set of students, is not able to participate, or he's not interacting well, make sure that you give him support in the sense that give him some construction sentences as to what is he supposed to speak about, what tense might he use. So very effective scaffolding. Second is pre-preparation. Now, if I come across a student, or let's say a group of students who never participate in a class, and I want them to speak today in my online class, I might probably connect with them before the class and let them know what are they supposed to do. And then motivate them over the phone call or maybe on a message. And then while the class is on, encourage them to speak so that there's nothing that they're not aware of. There's no surprise over here. All I want is them to interact. Third is the task level can be reduced. Let's say start with reading aloud for the students. Let the students only read aloud from the text that you're showing to them. That is also one way of participating in a classroom. And then the type of questions that you ask, maybe for such students, start with yes, no, hand raise, and then probably one-liners. It's just that as a teacher, we need to know that there will be students who are diffident, who have certain inhibitions. And as a teacher, we will try and, use as many ways to reduce that diffidence or inhibition. I think four I have answered. Maybe there can be more, but right now I could think of 4.
Yeah, and one more thing, what Scott talked about, that meeting them in small groups, because technology has an advantage. It may not be possible in real classroom situation, but here we can group the students. We hardly think about, because whenever we are in the initial stage, of course, of online teaching, and we generally try to address the entire class altogether, but this gives us an opportunity that we can meet the students in small groups as required. Now, next question is to Scott, before I come to Bharat once again. Scott, there is a question regarding using chat apps like WhatsApp, because there are many students who, or even teachers might not be, accessing or using Zoom or WebEx or something like that, Hangout. But in India, WhatsApp is available, and there are other chat apps as well. So if you could give some examples of using these apps creatively to make the classes interactive. Now, please unmute your mic, Scott.
There we go. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And I'm just following up on that last point there about the small groups. My real belief is that quality supersedes quantity. So if you have an opportunity for 15 or 20 minutes with a small group, rather than 45 minutes with a large so then we have to become creative in how we actually make lessons creative for all students. With WhatsApp, one way that I would suggest to do this is it's not live interaction with the students, but it can be a combination of live texting, and then you may have some short video messages that you record and send through WhatsApp. So while you don't get the kind of live Zoom interaction that we may have here with the group, you're still having near enough real-time video interaction. So you'd send text, and you could send attachment text and short videos where a student might ask a question. You could film something really, really quickly and then send that back to the student. So they're not just getting words, they're seeing you and you're responding in as close to real time as possible. So those are that's one sort of basic way to do it. Because audio visual is very important, and with our phones we can record those short texts very quickly and send them back. So outside of having Zoom or live video conferencing, that's one suggestion I'd have.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. One more question to Scott, because there is lately one question has come. So Dr. Shivender, he is asking that it is said that always appreciate in public and share feedback in private. But how do we manage it with 40 learners in a class, online class, you can say?
Yeah, and that's an excellent question. If we go back to this, the understanding of quality over quantity and purpose in feedback. So if you have a class of 40 students and they all have let's use a writing text, because we all know that grading 40 papers requires a huge amount of time. So with 40 students, what is our purpose as an educator for this particular task? Now, if it is to improve accuracy in writing, can we find 3 or 4 common issues across the group of 40 that's going to assist a high number of those learners that we can share at one time? Because as teachers, time is the most precious commodity. We never have enough time. So if we can focus on what is the student outcome needed to be successful, and then how can we help them in a short amount of time to take another step towards that final goal. So that's what I would say. When I have more than 20 students in a class, particularly with writing, I always come back with common issues that we can deal with in a group setting. Then if I do have 2 or 3 students that are really struggling, or a smaller group that have further issues, that's when I would suggest a second meeting time where we can really focus on that. But yeah, when we're dealing with large numbers and we want everyone to be successful, the common goal must be how can we focus and move together.
Great. Thank you so much. Because there are so many questions, I would like to ask the host, do we have time, because it's 5:40 already? All right. So this would be the last question, and that was there on the screen for quite some time and very interesting as well. That is regarding the catering to different learning styles, and that is to Bharat. That how can we address different learner needs in a way, different learning styles using online platforms? Bharat, please unmute your audio.
Thank you. I see Munira Zaveri has asked this question. Yeah. Quite insightful indeed. One of the ways to start with is you can choose asynchronous way of teaching. You can use learning management systems like Google Classroom or Edmodo or something like that. Here you will be able to provide similar instructions in a differentiated way. The concept of differentiated classrooms can be implemented using Google Classroom in a much more effective way than we can do in the regular classroom. So that is first thing. Second, in the planning phase, maybe we can divide them in small chunks of group. The instructions or the topic introduction could be same, but you could give them different activities according to their levels. And the feedback could also be provided in the same chunks. So that way you still keep it manageable, but also you are addressing to the students who have differentiated needs by providing them different activities and different feedbacks in group of students. Because in India, we always have to keep it in mind that any given day, the students will be not less than 40 in any class. So divide them in groups, assign them differentiated activities, use asynchronous model so that all the students are not coming to you at once. and then provide feedbacks in group as well. That could be one possible way how I think of it. There could be many other ways as well.
Yes, thank you, Bharat. Thank you so much. I think in your talk also, you talked about it, even Amit and even Scott. All three of you had a common point that there is a choice available. There is a choice available in terms of technology online. There is a choice available in terms of materials as well. The only thing we as teachers need to do is first explore ourselves, find out the comfort zone, and then finding out appropriate match with the pedagogy. So I think that gives us a better solution to make our online class interactive. So that's it for the day. Thank you all three speakers for very meaningful insights into making online class interactive. Thank you participants for listening patiently. I'll hand it over to Sanjay Arora now. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Goyal, for an excellent moderation of the session. And I also thank the panelists for their insightful ideas that were given in terms of making the online sessions interactive. So the common points that and also feedback is essential. Now, feedback reminds me of one of my trainings where we were taught about this PQP: praise, question, and polish. If you have to question someone, first praise, first search for some positive point, and then question the person, and then polish means giving a kind of suggestion. So this could apply more to peer feedback, I suppose. And there were quite a few ideas that came up, like there was this idea of this 5 to 10 minute video. And I'm reminded of these SWAYAM and NPTEL platforms which are offering online courses. And my objection to that is that these videos are as long as 50-minute, 40 to 50-minute, even some stretching beyond 50 minutes also. They're long videos in monotones. So that was also one of my questions, which probably I wanted to ask. So these are things which we, in fact, if you want to make these online sessions interactive, we need to take care of that. And then we also need to provide some additional support before we start with the session, which normally doesn't happen in a day-to-day classroom because the teacher just walks in and delivers a lecture and comes out. So quite a few ideas came through, and I would thank all these speakers, Scott, Amit, and Bharat. Thank you for your very valuable ideas. And I hope our participants would have really benefited from your suggestions. So before I close the session, I would like to make an announcement for tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we have a session on challenges facing higher education post-COVID-19. And this is, I would say, a kind of follow-up of this same session. So there would be larger things that may be discussed tomorrow. So with this, I thank you all for joining us for this session and making it a success. Thank you. Over to you, Xaviers. Shravan, Xaviers. Are you there?